I believe every person has a right to basic knowledge of how to optimize their mind, body, and spirit. Here, I bring to you influential individuals and ideas to help you live a more healthy, fulfilling life. I'm Julie Fouché, and I'd like to welcome you to Pursuing Health. Hello, and welcome back to Pursuing Health. This is episode number 27, and as the CrossFit Games regional season quickly approaches, for this episode, I got to sit down with Games head judge and Seminar Staff Flowmaster, Adrian Bozman. Adrian, or Boz as many know him, has been a staple figure in the CrossFit community over the past 10 years, and he's played a key role in the evolution of the CrossFit Games seminars as well as the Games competition itself. In this episode, we discuss how he first found CrossFit and came into these roles with Seminar Staff and the Games, how judging has evolved over the years as the Games has grown, as well as his experience with the Row versus Boz Open competitions over the past several years, and why he loves training in his garage gym and advice for those who are also building a gym in their home. Before we get started, I have a few quick reminders. First, if you're enjoying the podcast, please head over to iTunes to subscribe and consider giving it a 5-star rating. Please also head to my website, juliefouché.com. There you can enter your email to stay in the loop with the podcast and everything else I'm doing with my bi-weekly newsletter. I'm also always looking for inspiring stories to share. So if you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send your story to me at info@juliefouché.com, and I'll select some to share on future episodes. If you're interested in training with me, check out my program through Beyond the Whiteboard. This is the actual training I do now, 5 days per week, 1 hour per day, scheduled out for you minute by minute from warm up to cool down. For more info or to try the program out yourself, visit beyondthewhiteboard.com/juliefouché. So with that, let's get started here with episode 27 of Pursuing Health, featuring Adrian Bozman. I'm here on Pursuing Health with Adrian Bozman, who most people probably know as the head judge and of the CrossFit Games and Flowmaster on Seminar Staff.
I think that's probably accurate. Yep.
But and I'm excited to talk about some of those things.
Sure.
But I also want to talk too about from the very beginning how you first became involved in CrossFit, how you first found it.
Oh man, well
we're gonna go way back to
yeah. It's funny because I just had this conversation via email with somebody from a level 1 seminar, and anyway, yeah, it's kind of fun to go back down memory lane. I started dabbling just with the workouts online myself in late 2004.
Okay.
And it was kind of one of those like big toe in the pool to see if it's warm enough kind of things, you know, and then eventually I jumped in full force in 2005. And for me, it was really a case of right place at the right time. You know, I had a friend that we would do CrossFit together in Golden Gate Park. I had a kettlebell, he had some rings. We'd get together and just, you know, make up some workouts and go to it. And once in a while, I'd come down to Santa Cruz and train at the original affiliate, you know, very, very once in a while. And then I did my level 1 in 2006.
Okay.
And I think, if memory serves, Pat Sherwood and Dave Castro were at that level 1 also for their level 1.
Wow.
And I didn't know them at the time, so it's kind of funny how it comes full circle.
Right.
And then I just started getting more involved, and as they needed help with staffing, they asked me if I would lend a hand, and eventually they said, hey, we'll pay you to show up. And I said, well, great.
I'll be there.
And it just really grew into something that, you know, became a full-time thing for me, and I couldn't be happier. And at the time, it was certainly not something I expected, but I'm really, you know, honored and lucky to be involved in the ways that I am. So, yeah.
Wow. That's cool. So earlier talking to James, I think he said you were at his first level 1 seminar.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's cool to see, you know, and you were actually the Flowmaster at my level 1 seminar, or at least on staff. I don't know if you and Pat were both there.
Oh, cool.
So it's cool to see how different generations come up and how the seminar evolves and all of those things.
Yeah, I remember James's distinctly. It was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he was there with I think a friend of his family's, and I forget the circumstances, but we got introduced at that, and so it sticks out in my mind. But anyway, yeah. Where was yours?
Mine was also in Ann Arbor.
Oh, okay.
It was in 2010, I believe, right after I competed at the games for the first time.
Oh, so, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, you were there. I think Joe DeGane was there, Pat Sherwood. I'm not sure who else was there, but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Very cool to look back on. And then you eventually evolved into the role of Flowmaster, and you're still working seminars today, even with all of your other responsibilities.
Still working seminars. I don't do as many as I used to. You know, there's a time where it was a lot of travel, pretty nonstop, and these days I don't travel nearly as much, which is, you know, sometimes I kind of get a hankering for it, but it really is nice to be home, and I can focus on some other projects within CrossFit and you know, personally too. So it's been nice to kind of see that role shift a little bit, but still have an ability to stay connected with that aspect of, you know, teaching, because I really enjoy it.
Yeah. What is your favorite part about doing seminars?
I think the level 1 experience is still the same as it always has been for a lot of people. Like, people are really fired up, and you can see it as a stepping stone in what they're going to be doing in the future. And so, you know, I think the potential that's there is really exciting, both for the participants and for me to see that. So, like, that never goes away. And, you know, I think it's an answer that not many people give, but I feel it's true. I feel like I'm good at it. I think I present the material in a way that is, you know, accessible and memorable and clear. You know, and we have a very capable staff and a lot of people that are excellent presenters, and you know, many of which I take notes from every time I see them present. And so I'm really happy to be in the company of that. But I feel like I do a good job on that, and so that's enjoyable for me to know that I can offer what I feel is like a good learning experience. So
absolutely, yeah. And I think just that alone, I mean, the seminars have so many strengths, but just the way the information is presented alone, I think, is so powerful, and it's something that I know I've used in other arenas as well. Even in the first couple of years of medical school, when we're teaching other students, we do these small group learning experiences, and we're teaching each other a lot of concepts, and I'm always trying to use the whiteboard. I'm always trying to break things down and make them easy to understand. And I think that came from the very first time I sat in my level 1 seminar and saw, wow, you know, it's one of those life-changing experiences in so many ways.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, any of us that were lucky enough to see Coach Glassman at our level 1, or, you know, some of the original CrossFit names, that was exactly our takeaway too. It was like, wow, these concepts, you know, they can be pretty heady, but the way they're distilled makes them totally accessible. And yeah, that was a big turning point for me too. So,
right. You don't have to overcomplicate things to help people understand the big takeaways. All right. And then you evolved, I think, in a similar way into your role as the head judge, where you just sort of stepped up to that responsibility. So tell us about how you came into that role, and then how it has evolved, because it certainly has over the past several years.
Absolutely. So that the first time I was at the CrossFit Games was in 2008, and we, at the time, it was open to anybody. They just had to sign up, and there was, I don't even remember the numbers. I think we had 175 individual male competitors alone, or something like that. Wow. So it was a big number. And the way it worked was there were 3 events running on Saturday. We had chest to bar Fran, which at the time was like a big deal.
Right, chest to bar. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was like a real wow. I don't know if people are going to finish, you know.
Yeah.
How times have changed. So there was that event. There was a hill sprint. It was about an 800 meter, but on this really nasty little hill loop at the ranch. And then there was the deadlift burpee workout. And the way it worked is that throughout the course of the day, you had to be in one of the heats for each of the 3 workouts. Okay. But it didn't, I can't remember. We had like a rotation, but not everybody started at the same place and ended at the same place. So as long as you got those 3 workouts done in the course of the day, it was good to go. And we just kind of rotated through until everybody got a chance. So it was a long day. And I ran the deadlift burpee workout. And then I guess I didn't do too badly at it, and And Dave just started relying on me a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually started calling me the head judge. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to run with this. So,
sure,
so
why
we did.
not?
And yeah, that really it's just how it happened. Dave and I had been working together pretty closely on the seminar staff at that point, and it was really, I don't even know the words. It's a long time ago, so it's hard to recall the exact feeling. But it's a great feeling when somebody that you respect leans on you and obviously sees enough responsibility or ability in you that they kind of hand off that to you.
Right.
So that was really nice for me, and yeah, it's great to still be involved in that.
And it's something that has evolved. I know judging is one of those. It tends to be one of those controversial areas. There's always because of the nature of the sport
Sure.
and the fact that there's always going to be some subjectivity.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be some controversy or some
definitely.
questions. But every year the judging has evolved and the policies have evolved.
Yep.
What has that been like? And what are some of the ways that you've reacted to feedback or implemented some of these new policies?
Well, I think that the CrossFit Games is really interesting to me because it's still such a young sport, and I think people forget about that sometimes, especially people that are coming into the sport now and haven't necessarily seen some of the earlier years of competition, and they look at it through this lens of this really established, really entrenched activity like American football or track and field or something that have these governing bodies that have been around for generations now, and we
it's
just
the exact same game
weekend.
every
Exactly right. Yeah, fortunately or not, like we just don't have that same kind of playing field, nor do we have the same time span of which to evolve. Hopefully we will as things move forward, but I think for the amount of time that the CrossFit Games have been around, we've done a great job of growing with the sport and trying to make it as objective as possible. Despite the fact that it's grown like crazy, and we've seen feats of fitness and athleticism that we never thought that we would, especially not this quickly. So yeah, every year's a little bit tighter. Every year, I feel like the experience level of the judging crew, from the Open to the regionals to the games, is that much better. I feel like the events run smoother. And we do take a lot of feedback into consideration from the community, and that's nothing new. And I'm having a hard time thinking about specifics, off the cuff, but it's certainly something that we do invest a lot of time in to try to make it as good as it can be, because we understand at this point. I mean, better than anybody, people take this seriously and they train as if it is a job, and that's amazing. It's crazy to be a part of something like that. So I think just out of respect to the effort that people are putting in, you owe it to your competitors to try to make it as even a playing field as you possibly can. So
absolutely,
hopefully we can continue to up the ante on that.
Right. And even from the Open level and implementing things like the judging course, which is still very new, and then the games, increasing the training that goes into preparing those judges as well is every year. I've never gone through that training, but seeing from the outside the preparation and everything that goes into that week of preparing the judges to be out on the playing field is enormous. So.
Yeah, well, and I think even what really impresses me at the games on the individual side, they're staff. They're our seminar staff, and they're great at what they do, and as they should be. There's an expectation on them that is pretty high. But I'm always impressed, and as we get into the regionals, I'm sure I'll be impressed again. But just with the level of some of the volunteer judges that come back year after year, and they are so serious, and they study up, they take notes, they practice, and that sort of thing is just such a cool experience for me to see the same faces coming back and to see that they've put the time in, and I think that's a really great compliment to the athletic side of that competition.
Absolutely. And it reminds you that it does take time, like anything else, to develop that skill, to see enough reps to be able to call it in the moment. And it's not something that you can just walk up and do just because you've done CrossFit before. So realizing that it's an important skill to develop. Absolutely. So one of the other, you're also coming off of a great Roe versus Boz
man.
win this year, which I want to talk about a little bit.
Year of the Boz.
The year of the Boz.
That's right.
So that is always, I think for a lot of people, one of the favorite aspects of the open announcements is seeing you and Rory do the workouts live after the games athletes. What has that experience been for you? Been like for you?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Rory and I, since the first year of the Open, we've just kind of had like a friendly competition.
Right.
And, I think the first Open announcement that we ever did was, I think it was Dan Bailey and Scott Panchik, maybe. I hope it was. I hope I don't get that wrong. But anyway, everything was still set up after the competition. There were a few people milling around. The crew was kind of tearing down, and Rory's like, "Hey, you want to just do it right now?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, totally."
Get it over with.
So that became just the thing that we did, and it always, I mean, it's super nerve-wracking for me because I'm not an athlete, I'm just a guy that's been doing this stuff for a while. And when people actually stick around, I'm like, oh man, this is really happening.
Now the pressure's on,
so it's tricky, but ultimately it's a lot of fun.
Right.
And I don't know, I think it's really great that people are so willing to stick around and see just a bunch of regular guys suffer through this stuff.
I think it gives people great perspective too, and
thanks.
to see that, even. A lot of people will get nervous to do the open workouts even in their gym or at Friday Night Lights. And,
absolutely.
And just to see that it's okay. You don't have to be a games athlete. You can have just as much fun.
Yep.
You're going to look just the same after the workout's over.
Yep. And at the end of the day, I think that, people that haven't done the Open before, they haven't experienced that community aspect of it. They're always on the fence. But as soon as you experience something like that and you see just the support that's there for everybody across the board, it's like, how could you not do that? How could you not get hooked on that and just look forward to it every year? So, I know that I look forward to the Open every year. And first week, it's like, oh, man.
Right.
But I love it,
Right.
So it's fun.
Yes, it definitely brings out the best in us. That's for sure. Very cool. We've all enjoyed watching it. And
thanks.
Seeing it, the level of competition that you guys bring elevate as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, trying to. I got mopped up one year, so I was like, I can't let this happen again.
It's your training motivation all year.
Absolutely.
And speaking of training, I haven't been to your new garage gym, but I've been to one of your garage gyms.
Right.
And you are notoriously known for training in the garage.
Yep.
That's sort of your best environment for your training.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, and what is it like? I think it requires a little bit of extra level of motivation because you're oftentimes by yourself.
Yeah.
What is it? What do you like most about training in the garage?
I just like the accessibility of it. And working out for me is always something that, even before CrossFit, it was such a personal thing for me. Like we were talking earlier, when I was in college, I used to get up in the morning and run to the gym first thing and work out. And I was like, it's college gym at 6 a.m. I was the only one there.
Right. No one's
up
at 6 a.m. in college.
And that was just what I did. And not too many of my friends were into working out. And so it was always just a personal thing for me. And I don't think that's ever gone away. The garage gym, I like the accessibility of it. And, from the beginning, what has always really appealed to me about CrossFit is just the egalitarianism of it, the accessibility of it. You don't need fancy equipment and a really, defined training space to get really fit and healthy and maintain that. And I think that's just as true today, even though there are high-end options available, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important that people remember that if you strip it all away, you can still do this in your backyard with homemade equipment and have a huge impact on your life, and to me that's what it's all about. So the garage kind of harkens back to that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I love it. What advice do you have for people who are building their garage gym? What's the best piece of equipment you can start with?
I think just the basics. I think you can do a huge percentage of really legitimate CrossFit workouts with a barbell and a pull-up bar, Maybe get a set of rings and a pair of adjustable dumbbells after that, and I mean, you're laughing. After that, it's just kind of, what do you like to do?
Right.
So I think if you're gonna spend money, spend it on a barbell and some good plates because you're going to have them forever, and you might as well. But yeah, I think that's it. Barbell, pull-up bar. What else do you need really? Space to run around. That's
right.
you get that, and you're doing okay. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And can you tell us a little bit about your background too before you started CrossFit?
Yeah, totally.
Because I think that's another super interesting and little known fact.
Oh man, well, how far back you want to go? Well, we mentioned already I was working out in college, and that was just like the regular run and bench press, and like there's nothing fancy there. But I actually was studying music at the time, and so that's kind of where I came out of. I studied music for a few years in university.
What type of music?
I studied classical composition and theory, and I was a trombone player. At one point in my life, I wanted to be a symphony player, but it didn't work out. And
I did not know that about you.
Yeah, there you go.
Very interesting.
But I was always interested in fitness, and it was always something that I did personally. Finished up with school, wasn't really happy doing with what I was doing, so I moved to San Francisco on a whim. And at the time, there was a school for circus arts that I was interested in because I'd done some gymnastics growing up. So attended that. Didn't really know what was going to come out of it. And on the side to, pay my bills, I did some personal training. And that was ultimately what led me to discovering CrossFit and getting involved with that. So it's kind of interesting, the evolution of it.
The progression and the evolution, yeah. You never know, being at the right place, the right time to find out about things. And
exactly. Yep.
See how it evolves. Very cool. Well, I'm going to close with 3 questions I ask everyone.
Okay.
So the first one is 3 things you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health.
3 things on a regular basis that I do. Well, let me think about that. Work out regularly, I think, is the obvious one. Easy one. Even when it's not something I want to do, I feel like I'm relatively consistent. Even if they're not the greatest workouts in the world, I'm there and I do it.
And how do you choose your workouts? Do you follow CrossFit.com or do you just choose?
I mean, I've done it all.
yourself?
I've run the gamut. I've done people's programs. I've done CrossFit.com. I've made up my own. Let me think. 2 other habits. Like I try to. My diet is relatively consistent. It's not as disciplined as it used to be. I used to be really disciplined about, whatever protocol I was following, whether it was a zone or a different, breakdown of macronutrients or whatever it was. I was pretty dialed in. These days I'm a little bit more lax, but I'm never too far from the staples of meat, vegetables, nuts and seeds, et cetera, et cetera. So that's obviously a good second. And third, I don't know. I guess I try to maintain a positive mental attitude. I think that's
a huge one.
Yeah. I don't know how successful I am sometimes. Like you catch me in the middle of a regionals event and a million things are going on, and hopefully I'm still trying to maintain that positive attitude. But I think that's probably the third. I don't feel like I have any
a great one. No,
unique insight to that question.
No, that's a really good one. I think people often underestimate the impact that can have really on your health.
Yeah. And I think, along with that, I guess if I did want to add something that maybe not as many people, at least in the CrossFit world, I see that are really pursuing it and really kind of in it. I feel like I do a pretty good job of maintaining a balance of things outside of my CrossFit life, and that's important to me.
Absolutely.
I've never been a person to only want to pursue one thing forever, and it's not that those things that I do pursue are less interesting to me or less important, but I've always felt it's important to be well-rounded, and so sometimes I think taking a step back from, oh, my leaderboard score is this, or oh, my workout wasn't so good, or whatever, and just recognizing that in the big scheme of things, it's not the end of the world. I think that's really important too.
Right. Having a variety of interests.
Yeah.
I love it. What about one thing that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you have a hard time implementing it, or you just haven't
I could
there?
Talk all day about that.
We just need one.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Your favorite one.
Hey, shut up, Oz. It's been going long enough. For me, it's always sleep. I have no problem sleeping. I love sleeping. I just don't do it enough, and I don't do it for long enough, and I don't go to bed early enough. I'm always up way too late for no other reason than I just find something to do.
Right,
you know?
right. There's so many things
Exactly.
to do. There's always something you can find, but that's a great one. Our last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
Healthy life looks like, I say it all the time, but I think that it's physical freedom. Like I think it's having the freedom to, be able to pursue anything that you want, whether that's intellectual pursuit or a physical one or something that's kind of a marriage of the two. I think it's just being able-bodied and minded enough to do that. So whatever it is that supports that outcome, I think is worth pursuing.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we look forward to seeing you at the regional events and then the games this year.
It's going to be fun.
Definitely. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. I always love talking to Boz, and I was so happy to share his unique perspective of CrossFit and the games with all of you. Stay tuned for the CrossFit Games regional season, which is coming up in less than 2 weeks. I can't wait to see everyone at the Central Regional at the end of May in Columbus, where I'll be competing myself and having a great time this year. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, please head to my website now, juliefoucher.com, and subscribe to my email list. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please email me at info@juliefoucher.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on the podcast. Also, if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. I always love hearing your feedback, so please leave comments here under this post on my website, juliefoucher.com. You can also share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag JFHealth. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Pursuing Health.